The grand amphitheater of the Galactic Concordance shimmered under the twin suns of Xylos Prime. Its walls were made of living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light, responding to the emotions of those inside. Hundreds of species filled the tiered seats, some floating, some crawling, others standing tall on many legs. The air hummed with translation fields, turning every chirp, growl, and whisper into understandable speech. At the center of it all sat the human delegation, small and quiet among the giants of the galaxy. Daniel Carter sat at the front of their table, his hands folded, his face calm. Beside him, Maya Ellis watched the room with sharp eyes, her fingers lightly tapping a slim data pad that displayed real-time sentiment analysis from every major delegation. She knew things were about to go wrong. For 6 weeks, the talks had dragged on over the Helios expanse, a region of space rich in rare minerals and stable wormholes. The humans had come with maps, data, and a proposal for shared stewardship. They offered scientific access, environmental protections, and fair distribution of resources. But the Veln, a reptilian species with armored scales and cold yellow eyes, had laughed. Their ambassador, Zorath Vex, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. He called human concerns sentimental distractions and claimed the expanse belonged to those strong enough to hold it. The Qatari Consortium, a group of tall, silent beings wrapped in silver cloaks, said nothing, but their trade ships had already begun rerouting away from human space. A quiet show of support for the Veln. Daniel had tried patience. He had sat through insults disguised as diplomacy, through condescending lectures about how young humanity was, how naive. He had listened while other species nodded along, treating Earth like a child who had wandered into a meeting meant for adults. But today was different. Today, the Veln had crossed a line. During the morning session, Zorath Vex had presented forged sensor logs proving that human mining drones had damaged a sacred Veln nebula. The evidence was flimsy, easily debunked, but the damage was done. The chamber buzzed with doubt. Even neutral delegations began to shift in their seats, glancing at the humans with suspicion. Maya leaned toward Daniel and whispered, "They're setting us up. The logs don't match any of our flight paths. Someone altered them." Daniel didn't answer right away. He just watched Zorath Vex, who was now smirking behind his fanged grin, clearly enjoying the chaos he'd stirred. Daniel knew then that this wasn't about the Helios expanse anymore. It was about power. It was about making an example of humanity so no other young species would dare speak up. When the session resumed after the midday pause, the head moderator, a gentle, four-armed being from the Lithian Collective, called on the human delegation to respond. All eyes turned to Daniel. He stood slowly, his dark uniform crisp, his posture straight. He didn't reach for notes. He didn't need them. "For weeks," he began, his voice calm but carrying through the chamber, "we have offered cooperation. We have shared data, opened our archives, and listened, even when we were spoken to like children. Today we were accused of damaging a nebula we never visited, using evidence that does not exist. This is not diplomacy. This is theater." A murmur spread through the room. Some species looked uncomfortable. Others leaned forward, intrigued. "We came here in good faith," Daniel continued. "But good faith requires honesty. It requires respect. And right now, neither is present in this chamber. Therefore, effective immediately, the Terran Union withdraws from all ongoing negotiations of the Galactic Concordance. We will not return until this body is ready to treat all members, not just the old and powerful, as equals." Silence fell for half a second. Then chaos exploded. Alarms blared as containment fields flickered. Standard protocol when tensions spiked. A Mir delegate dropped their communication orb in shock. The Veln ambassador shot to his feet, his tail lashing. "You dare walk away," he hissed. "You insignificant—" Daniel didn't wait to hear the rest. He turned and walked toward the exit, Maya right behind him. Their security detail, a pair of quiet, heavily armored Marines named Cole and Rivera, closed in around them without a word. As they moved down the aisle, the noise behind them grew louder. Shouts, protests, the clatter of alien limbs rising in agitation. Some species called for order. Others demanded punishment. A few, like the small, furry Nixie from the outer rim, simply watched with wide eyes as if seeing humans for the first time. Outside, the twin suns cast long shadows across the polished plaza. The air was cooler here, scented with alien blossoms that bloomed only during council sessions. Maya exhaled sharply. "That was bold." "It was necessary," Daniel said, not slowing his pace. They wanted us to beg, to apologize for existing. I won't do that. Back aboard their shuttle, the Aurora Dawn, Maya pulled up the latest comms traffic. News of the withdrawal was already spreading across the galactic net. Human colonies were lighting up with messages, some worried, many proud. On Mars, workers had paused their shifts to watch the feed. In Geneva, crowds gathered outside the old UN building, waving flags that hadn't been flown in decades. Earth hadn't backed down. For the first time in years, people felt seen. But Daniel knew the real consequences were just beginning. The Veln wouldn't let this go. The Qatari would likely cut off trade completely. And the Concordants? They might brand humanity as reckless, even dangerous. Still, as the shuttle lifted off, leaving the glittering spires of Xylos Prime behind, Daniel felt no regret. He had spoken the truth. And sometimes truth was the only weapon worth carrying. Maya looked up from her screen. What now? Now, Daniel said, gazing out the viewport at the stars. We prepare. Not for war, but for respect. Because if they won't give it freely, they'll learn to earn it. The shuttle banked toward the jump point, its engines humming softly. Behind them, the galactic concordance burned with confusion and outrage. Ahead, the void waited, silent, vast, and full of possibility. News of humanity's withdrawal from the galactic concordance spread faster than any ship could fly. Within hours, it reached every human colony, station, and outpost across 6 star systems. On Mars Colony Theta, Liam Brooks stood in the middle of a repair bay, his hand still wrapped around a plasma conduit. The feed from Xylos Prime played on a wall screen, frozen on the image of Daniel Carter walking away from the chaos. Around him, his crew had stopped working. No one spoke. Then someone clapped. Then another. Soon the whole bay echoed with cheers, tools banging against metal in celebration. Liam didn't join in right away. He just stared at the screen, thinking of his father, who had once said humans always bent too far to please others. Maybe, just maybe, that was finally changing. Back on Earth, the reaction was even stronger. In Geneva, crowds gathered outside the old United Nations building, not with anger but with pride. They held signs that read, "We stand with Carter," and "No more silence." In Jakarta, students marched through the streets singing old protest songs, rewritten with new verses about stars and dignity. Even in quiet towns far from spaceports, people talked about it over dinner. For decades, humanity had played the role of the eager newcomer, grateful for a seat, careful not to offend, always compromising. Now someone had said enough, and it felt like a weight had lifted. But not everyone celebrated. In the upper levels of Luna Command, tension ran high. Admiral Nora Ruiz paced the strategy room, her boots clicking against the steel floor. General Eli Stone sat at the table, arms crossed, watching live feeds from the Helios border. The Veln were already moving. Scout ships had been spotted near Proxima Centauri, and long-range sensors picked up unusual energy spikes from Veln shipyards. Worse, the Qatari had cut all trade routes with human sectors without warning. Food shipments, medical supplies, even data relays, all gone. It wasn't war, not yet, but it was punishment. Daniel Carter arrived at Luna Command late that night. He looked tired but focused. Maya Ellis walked beside him, her datapad already filled with updates from Earth's intelligence network. They joined Ruiz and Stone in the strategy room. "No greetings, just business. The Veln are testing us," Ruiz said. "They want to see if we'll crawl back begging." "They won't get that," Daniel replied. "But we can't just wait for them to strike either." Maya tapped her screen. "We still have allies even if they're quiet." The Mer sent a private message. They're grateful. The Sylph offered to share sensor data from their outer reefs. Even the Lumen hinted they might open a back channel. Stone leaned forward. "Allies won't stop a fleet. What we need is deterrence," Daniel nodded. "Then it's time to wake up Project Sentinel." Ruiz's eyes narrowed. "You're sure?" "The Concordance banned autonomous defense grids after the Drax War. If they find out we've reactivated it..." "They already think we're reckless," Daniel said. "Let them think we're prepared too." Project Sentinel had been dormant for 20 years. Built in secret during the early days of interstellar travel, it was a network of deep space observatories, drone hives, and stealth platforms hidden in asteroid fields and dead moons, designed to watch, listen, and if needed, respond. It had never been used. Now it would be humanity's silent shield. Orders went out quietly. On Titan, automated shipyards powered up. their robotic arms assembling corvettes with matte black hulls and neural-linked targeting systems. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, crews in pressure suits installed phased array shields on old orbital habitats, turning them into hidden strongpoints. On Luna, engineers worked around the clock to sync Sentinel's nodes with Earth's defense grid. No flashy announcements. No threats. Just work. Meanwhile, Maya handled the diplomatic side. She sent calm, factual messages to every neutral delegation in the Concordance, explaining humanity's position without anger or blame. She shared unedited logs from the Helios expanse, proving the Veln's claims were false. Some ignored her. Others replied with cautious thanks. A few even asked for more data. It wasn't victory, but it was a start. On Mars, Liam Brooks and his team got new orders. Instead of repairing old freighters, they were now upgrading sensor arrays and comms relays. "We're not hiding anymore," his supervisor said. Liam understood. Every bolt he tightened, every wire he soldered, was part of something bigger. Back on Earth, schools held special lessons about galactic politics. Parents told their kids stories not just of astronauts and explorers, but of diplomats who stood their ground. The mood wasn't fearful, it was focused. People stocked up on supplies, yes, but they also volunteered for civil defense drills, donated to colony support funds, and checked on neighbors. It felt less like preparing for war and more like standing together. Then came the first real test. A Veln cruiser, the Iron Maw, drifted near the edge of Proxima Centauri's human-controlled zone. It didn't fire. It didn't transmit. It just hovered there like a predator waiting. Luna Command held its breath. But before anyone could react, 3 human picket ships emerged from behind a moon, silent, steady, and flanked by a cloud of small drones. The drones didn't attack. They simply broadcast a single message in over 100 languages, repeating it on every open channel. "We see you." The Iron Maw didn't move for 10 minutes. Then slowly it turned and left. No shots were fired, no lives lost, but the message was clear. Humanity wasn't blind. Humanity wasn't helpless. And humanity wasn't alone. That night, Daniel stood on the observation deck of Luna Command looking down at Earth. The planet glowed blue and white, peaceful from this distance. Maya joined him holding 2 cups of coffee. "They're scared now," she said softly. "Good," Daniel replied. "Maybe now they'll listen." Far away in the silent dark between stars, the first nodes of Project Sentinel blinked online. Their sensors swept the void, watching, waiting, not for war, but for peace worth keeping. And somewhere in a Martian repair bay, Liam Brooks wiped grease from his hands and smiled. For the first time, he felt like part of something that mattered, not just a worker, not just a colonist, but human, and that he realized was enough. While the Galactic Concordance scrambled to make sense of humanity's sudden silence, Earth and its colonies worked without noise. There were no grand speeches, no threats broadcast across the stars. Instead, humans built. They upgraded. They watched. On Titan, the icy moon of Saturn, robotic arms moved day and night inside shielded hangars, assembling sleek corvettes with hulls that drank light instead of reflecting it. These ships carried no bright insignias, only a small silver emblem near the cockpit, a circle with a single line through it, the old symbol for balance. Engineers called them ghosts, not because they were invisible, but because they moved without warning and left no trace but results. In the asteroid belt, old mining stations once left to rust were now humming with new life. Workers like Lena Ruiz, Admiral Ruiz's younger sister, oversaw the installation of phased array shields on habitats that had once housed only tired miners and broken machines. These shields could bend energy, scatter scans, and hold against plasma fire long enough for evacuation or countermeasures. Lena didn't wear a uniform, but she carried herself like a soldier. "We're not hiding," she told her crew. "We're choosing when to be seen." Back on Luna, Daniel Carter and Maya Ellis met daily with military and civilian leaders. They avoided words like war or enemy. Instead, they spoke of readiness and sovereignty and mutual respect. They knew the galaxy watched them, waiting for humans to either collapse into fear or lash out in anger, but humanity did neither. It simply prepared, calmly, thoroughly, and without apology. This quiet strength confused the Veln. Used to either groveling newcomers or reckless warmongers, they had no script for a species that refused to play either role. Zorath Vex demanded action from his high command. They insult us and then go silent, he growled during a closed session. We must crush them before others get ideas. But even among the Veln, doubt had begun to spread. Their scouts reported strange readings near human borders, energy signatures that flickered in and out, drone swarms that vanished the moment they were targeted, and sensor ghosts that looked like ships but left no debris when destroyed. Were humans bluffing? Or had they spent decades building something no one saw coming? The Qatari, usually unreadable behind their silver cloaks, grew uneasy. Their trade networks relied on stability, and humanity's calm defiance was anything but stable. When their own long-range probes picked up encrypted signals bouncing between dead moons and empty comets, they sent a quiet inquiry to neutral brokers. What do the humans know that we don't? Meanwhile, small species began to notice something new. The Myr, a gentle insectoid people who traded in bioluminescent algae, had long been squeezed by Veln tariffs. One of their freighters, the Glowwing, was stopped near the Helios border by a Veln patrol. The captain expected fines, delays, maybe confiscation. Instead, a human picket ship appeared from behind a dust cloud. It didn't fire. It didn't speak. It just hovered nearby, its sensors clearly locked on the Veln cruiser. After a tense silence, the Veln ship turned and left. The Myr captain sent a message to Earth the next day. Thank you. We see you too. That message was the first of many. The aquatic sylph who lived in the methane seas of Gliesa 667 cc shared deep space sonar maps showing hidden Veln supply routes. The Lumen, crystalline beings who communicated through light pulses, opened a secure data channel and sent schematics of an old Concordance listening post they'd discovered abandoned near the Orion Spur. None of these species declared alliance. None signed treaties. But they watched, and they chose to help. Daniel and Maya didn't ask for thanks. They simply logged the data, verified it, and used it to strengthen their own network. Project Sentinel grew smarter with every new piece of information. Its drones learned to mimic asteroid drift. Its observatories could now distinguish between a mining vessel and a warship from 3 light minutes away. And its response protocols remained locked, set to activate only if fired upon first. Then came the real test. The Veln, frustrated by failed intimidation, launched what they called a show of force. A full battle group, 2 cruisers, 4 destroyers and a command carrier, moved toward the Proxima Centauri relay station, a key hub for human communications. Their goal wasn't to destroy it, but to occupy it, to prove humans couldn't protect their own space. But when the Veln fleet arrived, they found the relay station already guarded. Not by a fleet, but by a single human frigate, the Dawn Chaser, flanked by 24 drone spheres no larger than satellites. The frigate broadcast no threats. It simply opened a wideband channel and played a looped message in Veln, Qatari, Myr, Sylph, Lumen, and over 90 other languages. This is sovereign human space. You are not welcome. The Veln commander, General Vex, no relation to the ambassador but just as proud, ordered his ships to advance. As they did, the drone spheres scattered, not in panic but in perfect formation. Then, from the dark side of Proxima's third moon, 3 more human corvettes emerged, silent and swift. At the same time, every civilian ship in the sector, freighters, research vessels, even a school transport, activated their emergency beacons, flooding the area with location pings. To the Veln sensors, it looked like a massive ambush. Vex hesitated. His orders were to intimidate, not to start a war with unknown odds. After 20 minutes of tense silence, he ordered a retreat. The human ships didn't follow. They just watched as the Veln fleet turned and vanished into the void. News of the standoff spread fast, not through official channels but through trader nets, colony comms, and whispered messages between species. The story wasn't about weapons or explosions. It was about presence, about calm, about a species that didn't shout but stood firm. On Mars, Liam Brooks heard the news while fixing a water recycler. He smiled and kept working. On Titan, Lena Ruiz toasted her crew with recycled coffee. On Earth, children drew pictures of ghost ships guarding the stars. And in the heart of the Veln command, Zorath Vex slammed his fist on the table. They are not warriors, he snarled. They are ghosts, but his aide, younger and quieter, whispered something that chilled the room. Ghosts are harder to kill. Far away, in the silent dark, Project Sentinel's central node logged the event, updated its threat assessments, and waited. Humanity had not fired a single shot. Yet the galaxy was already changing. Because sometimes the strongest message is the one you don't have to say out loud. The real change began not with weapons but with whispers. After the standoff at Proxima Centauri, something shifted in the galaxy. Species that had stayed silent for generations started speaking, not in loud declarations but in quiet messages sent through hidden channels. The Mer were the first to reach out openly. Their council sent a formal request to Earth. They wanted to share their trade routes not as a favor but as partners. They had watched how humans stood without striking, how they protected without threatening, and it reminded them of their own lost ways. Then came the Sylph. From their methane seas on Gliese 600-67cc, they transmitted a data packet filled with centuries of oceanic sonar maps that showed not just sea currents, but hidden Veln mining tunnels beneath their own ocean floors. The Sylph had suffered under Veln resource agreements for decades, forced to hand over rare minerals while their young choked on polluted tides. They had never dared to resist, but now, seeing humans hold their ground without violence, they found courage. Even the Lumen, those silent beings of living crystal who communicated only through pulses of colored light, opened a direct line to Luna Command. Their message was simple. They offered access to an ancient network of deep space relays built long before the Concordance existed. These relays could send messages faster than any known comms system, undetectable by standard scans. In return, they asked only one thing: that humanity help them protect their home cluster from Veln survey drones. Daniel Carter and Maya Ellis didn't treat these offers as victories. They treated them as trust. Every request was reviewed, every offer verified, and every partnership built on clear terms. No promises were made lightly. No data was shared without consent. This careful honesty surprised many. They expected humans to seize the moment, to build an army of allies for revenge. Instead, humans built something rarer, a network of equals. Word spread. On the outer rim, the Nixie, a small, furry species long ignored by the Concordance, sent a delegation to Mars Colony Theta. They brought gifts of woven star maps and asked for help upgrading their planetary shields. Liam Brooks, still working in the repair bay, was assigned to the project. He taught them how to calibrate human-grade emitters using local materials. In return, the Nixie showed him how to weave thermal insulation from their native moss, lighter and more efficient than anything Earth had. It wasn't war, it was sharing. Back on Earth, schools began teaching more than just human history. Children learned about Mir poetry, Sylph title songs, and the Lumen's light language. Markets sold alien spices and fabrics. People didn't just tolerate difference, they celebrated it. And slowly the idea took root. Maybe the galaxy didn't have to be ruled by the strongest. Maybe it could be shaped by those who chose to stand together. The Veln noticed. At first they mocked the alliance of insects and ghosts, as Zorath Vex called it. But when their supply ships started vanishing near Mir space, not destroyed, just rerouted by coordinated civilian blockades, they grew nervous. When Sylph sonar nets exposed 3 hidden Veln listening posts near neutral worlds, the Qatari began asking hard questions. Even their own allies were turning. Desperate to regain control, the Veln made a mistake. They sent a fleet to intercept a Mir trade convoy carrying medical supplies to a Sylph nursery reef. It was meant to be a warning. Cross us and your aid disappears. But this time humans were ready. Not with warships, but with truth. A combined human-Mir task force met the Veln fleet not with weapons, but with broadcast drones. As the Veln commander demanded surrender, the drones activated. Across every open channel in every major language, they played footage, real footage, of Veln soldiers dumping toxic waste into Sylph breeding grounds, of Mir elders forced to kneel in public squares, of Lumen children separated from their light clusters during security sweeps. The recordings came from smuggled data chips, hidden cameras, and old Concordance archives the Veln thought had been erased. The footage spread like fire. Within hours, it was on every public feed in the galaxy. Even the Qatari couldn't ignore it. Their trade council issued a rare statement. We require clarification. Neutral species that had stayed silent now demanded investigations. Protests erupted outside Veln embassies on a dozen worlds. Zorath Vex tried to call it fake. But the evidence was too detailed, too consistent. And for the first time, the Veln found themselves alone. The Mir convoy passed safely. The human Mir task force didn't fire a single shot. They simply turned and left, their message delivered not with force but with facts. On Luna, Daniel watched the fallout unfold. "Truth is our strongest weapon," he said to Maya. "And patience," she added. "They thought we'd rush to fight. Instead, we gave others the chance to see." That night, a new message arrived, not from a species but from a group. The Mir, Sylph, Lumen, Nixie, and 5 other small civilizations had formed something they called the Coalition of Equals. They didn't ask for human leadership. They asked for a seat at the table, as partners, not followers. They wanted to rewrite the rules of the galaxy, not just survive them. Daniel and Maya brought the proposal to Earth's Unified Council. There was debate, of course. Some feared it would provoke the Veln further. Others worried about overextending. But in the end, the vote was clear. Humanity would stand with the coalition. Preparations began for a new kind of diplomacy. Not in the grand amphitheater of Xylos Prime, but in shared spaces built by many hands. On a neutral moon near the Orion Spur, humans and Mir laid the first stones of a new meeting hall. The walls would be made of Sylph coral, the lights powered by lumen crystals, the doors guarded by Nixie sentinels. It wouldn't be perfect, but it would be fair. And as the first beams were raised under a quiet sky, Liam Brooks stood beside a Mir engineer, both of them covered in dust and smiling. No one spoke. They didn't need to, because for the first time the galaxy felt less like a ladder and more like a circle. The amphitheater was quiet this time, not because fear held tongues, but because something new had taken root: respect. The living crystal walls still pulsed with soft blue light, but now the glow felt warmer, steadier. Delegates filled the tiered seats again, but the arrangement had changed. No longer were the old powers clustered at the center. Instead, humans sat beside the Mir, the Sylph next to the Lumen, the Nixie sharing a row with species no one had heard of a year before. At the front table, Daniel Carter stood with Maya Ellis, not as lone representatives but as part of the Coalition of Equals. Behind them sat elders from 6 young civilizations, their presence alone a quiet revolution. The Veln delegation arrived late. Their usual swagger was gone. Zorath Vex walked with his head low, flanked by aides who avoided eye contact. The Qatari envoy, wrapped in silver as always, sat perfectly still. But for the first time they had sent a speaker who could be seen, not just heard through a filtered voice. The concordance moderator, the same 4-armed Lithian from before, called the session to order with a gentle chime. No alarms, no tension fields. Just silence, waiting to be filled. Daniel stepped forward. He wore no armor, no medals, just a simple dark tunic with the Coalition's new emblem stitched on the shoulder. A circle made of many lines, each different, all connected. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "We did not come here to demand," he began. "We came to offer. For too long this council has spoken for the galaxy while listening only to the few. Resources have been taken, voices ignored, and peace built on silence. That ends today." He paused, letting the words settle. Then he laid out the proposal. Shared governance of contested zones like the Helios Expanse, with rotating oversight from all member species. Transparent audits of mining and trade, open to any delegation that asked. A new council seat for every civilization with a stable government and peaceful intent, not based on fleet size or age, but on willingness to cooperate. And most importantly, a rule. No species could be judged by another without evidence, and no punishment could be given without a fair hearing. It wasn't perfect. It left room for debate, for mistakes, for slow progress, but it was fair. The Veln ambassador tried to speak against it. "This gives power to those who cannot wield it," he said, his voice weaker than before. A Mir elder rose slowly. "We have wielded silence for centuries," she said, her voice thin but clear through the translator. "Now we choose to speak. Is that not strength?" The Qatari envoy stood. For the first time in living memory, they removed their hood, revealing a face lined with age and regret. "We severed trade with humanity out of fear," they said. "Fear that change would hurt us. But we were wrong. Stability without fairness is not peace, it is control. We apologize, and we support this proposal." Murmurs spread through the chamber, not of anger, but of awe. Even the oldest species leaned forward, watching history unfold. The vote came quickly. One by one, delegations signaled their choice. Green lights bloomed across the chamber like stars waking at dusk. The Veln abstained but did not veto. When the final count appeared in the air above the podium, the number was overwhelming. 187 in favor, 3 against, 12 abstentions. The new accord passed. No one cheered. No one shouted. Instead, a quiet hum rose, the sound of 100 species breathing together as if for the first time in sync. After the session, Daniel and Maya walked out into the plaza. The twin suns of Xylos Prime cast long, gentle shadows. Around them, delegates from small worlds approached, not to bow but to thank. A Nixie child pressed a woven flower into Maya's hand. A Sylph elder touched Daniel's arm with a webbed hand, their eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You gave us hope," they said. "Now we give it back." Back aboard the Aurora Dawn, Maya pulled up the latest updates. Human colonies were already adjusting to the new trade agreements. On Mars, Liam Brooks was helping mirror engineers install shared water purifiers. On Titan, Lena Ruiz was training Nixie pilots on drone coordination. Earth's schools had added coalition languages to their curriculums. It wasn't just diplomacy, it was daily life. Daniel stood by the viewport watching Xylos Prime shrink behind them. "We didn't win a war," he said softly. "No," Maya replied. "We built a table." And that, they both knew, was harder. In the weeks that followed, the changes deepened. The Veln, isolated and shamed, began quiet talks with the Sylph about cleaning their poisoned seas. The Qatari reopened trade routes, this time with fair terms. The old concordance didn't vanish, it evolved. New voices spoke. Old rules bent, and humanity, once seen as too young, too soft, too eager, was now seen as something else. Steady, not because they had the biggest ships or the loudest voices, but because they had listened when others shouted, stood when others ran, and offered a hand instead of a fist. On Earth, children played under open skies, dreaming not just of stars, but of friends among them. In Martian repair bays, workers hummed songs in languages they'd never heard a year before. And in the silent dark between worlds, Project Sentinel remained active, not as a weapon, but as a guardian, watching over a peace that had been earned, not given. Daniel and Maya never asked for statues or titles. They went back to work like everyone else. Because the real victory wasn't in a vote or a treaty, it was in the quiet moments. A shared meal between species, a rescued ship guided home by strangers, a message sent across light years that simply said, "We're here if you need us." The galaxy hadn't become perfect, but it had become possible. And as the Aurora Dawn jumped toward home, its engines whispering through the void, Daniel finally smiled. Not because the fight was over, but because for the first time it felt like they were all in it together.